our live coverage here at reInvent 2023. I'm Am Grabelny, one of your hosts, joined by a co-host I don't get to see very often. I'm so excited to see you up here, Nathan. Tell the people about yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Nathan Peck. I'm a developer advocate for serverless containers at AWS. It's been a while since I've been on the show, but good to be back as a host again.
Oh, man. Nathan, you have no idea. I don't see you very often, but I am using your Fargate CloudFormation templates all the time. You create so much great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we've got our guest down there, Doug, returning to the show.
Yeah.
Feels like a reunion all around.
I agree, yeah. Doug Clausen. I'm a product manager on Amazon CodeCatalyst inside of our next generation developer experience organization.
And the last time we talked, I told you CodeCatalyst has quickly become a staple in my day-to-day life. It's how I've been building a lot on the game day team with a lot of my co-collaborators on game day content. Been really enjoying what I've seen, and I hear you've just launched a ton of stuff.
Yeah, really excited this year at reInvent. We launched, just before reInvent, we launched a lot of capabilities that would help larger teams build and manage their applications on AWS. Included things like SSO, which was a long requested feature, things like VPC support, if you're using VPCs. A couple things we're going to show today as well. We've got our CodeCatalyst Enterprise Tier, which is also somewhat of a different way that we price CodeCatalyst to allow you to grow the usage that you get with the users that you have so that you can keep your costs very fixed. And with that enterprise tier comes custom blueprints. We show in that today, blueprints allow you to be able to build and then ultimately deploy applications on AWS faster. Think of them like a template, but it's a template that's alive, right? So the template, as the template changes, all of your subsequent projects will get pull requests to change as well, and we'll show that today.
I'm a huge fan of that type of approach. I've literally been building blueprints for ECS container deployments for like probably the past 6 months because I know that it accelerates development workflow cycles so much faster when you can start from something that already works and then put your custom code inside of it rather than reinventing the world from scratch every single time you have a new feature to build.
Yeah, totally. And the other cool thing that we've done with blueprints is you can actually use multiple blueprints per project. So if you want to use them as building blocks, say your security team has their particular building block they want. Maybe you've got a platform or an infrastructure team that has their building block, and you've got your source code team that maybe they've got their building blocks. Combine all those together and sort of pick and choose what you want, get your project out. So yeah, we're really excited about how this is coming together.
I'm going to need access to those Nathan Peck custom blueprints, by the way. We'll talk about that after. Now, let's take a step back first. And for anybody who is new to CodeCatalyst, never heard of it maybe, what does it do?
Yeah, CodeCatalyst, so first off, CodeCatalyst.aws, and you can get started really quickly. CodeCatalyst is a complete DevOps tool chain. So if you go and create a CodeCatalyst project, you're going to have an issues management board, a source code repository, and CI/CD workflows all in the same application to allow you to start building right away, right? Start with a blueprint, you can bring your own code, or you can start from scratch, and then you literally just get to start building, right? You don't worry about, am I using the right applications or the right services for this application? You don't worry about, do I have the starter code already, or how do I get that starter code? You don't worry about the deployments either, because it's already happening, right? It's all there for you.
And don't forget my favorite feature, which is a dev environment.
The dev environment. I knew you were going to say that, because that's mine too.
Yeah. The number of times, like, in the past, when I onboarded to a new organization, and they have a bunch of tool chain, associated with building out the application, and I have to start with a blank laptop, and I'm like, okay, this is going to take a long time to get everything working, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so dev environments as well. Think of it as cloud-based workstations, cloud-based development environments. We offer them today in Cloud9, VS Code, and then multiple JetBrains IDEs, and it allows you to very quickly and easily have a configurable and repeatable experience in running a development environment, whether that's local to your laptop, running just a VS Code on your laptop, running SSH'd into a cloud machine, running all of the actual code itself, or running Cloud9 and having literally no installs. I actually got a demo later today where I'm using Cloud9 to make a few small changes, and it's so nice to touch nothing.
Yeah.
These are configured by a dev file inside the repo themselves. So all the developers that work on that project get the exact same experience. And then if I jump between projects and the dev file is different, I don't have to worry about anything because it's all getting installed in the cloud machine for me.
So I got one service on Node version 18, one service on Node version 20.
Totally. Yeah, or Python versions that conflict. Or pick is another thing that goes wrong, right? Like, yeah, that problem's gone.
Well, on the game day team, we've got a very specific way of setting up for developing a game day, and it involves installing a bunch of software, one of which is a CLI tool that we use, that we build. It's in the dev environment. Like
Yeah.
this has been very, very impactful for us as a team, because it makes it much easier. Because not everybody has a deep development background that's building one of these game days internally at AWS. So to give them an environment already set up, ready to go, has been great.
Yeah, same thing we've had for, sorry, I was going to say, same thing we've seen for other customers who have data engineers who are off and running and maybe don't need a machine all the time and don't want to keep it up to date either.
Yeah.
It works well there as well.
And that's going to scale up all the way from a small team to a large enterprise as well. Like we know that people who are working at large enterprises also need CodeCatalyst capabilities, and I think that leads into what we're launching actually now for CodeCatalyst.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got these. So think of the blueprints. Originally, when we launched CodeCatalyst, the intent was for smaller teams to go check it out and see if see what they think. Right, give us some feedback. One of the very first pieces of feedback that we got was, hey, these blueprints are great, but there's not enough of them, and I actually don't want yours. I want to build my own.
I asked you this back in April.
Everybody
Doug,
asked
remember?
for this. Yep.
At the Application Innovation Day.
So super excited. Last night, those launched here at reInvent. And so I can show you what that looks like. I'm not going to be able to build my own, but I'll show you some that have already been built and then how you would use them.
Nice.
The other thing that we launched that I'll end up showing in a demo here, we also just today, like literally an hour ago, Adam Slipsky announced Amazon Q. We've also launched an integration of Q inside of CodeCatalyst, which we call the feature development capabilities. If you saw him talking about that, that's going to allow you in CodeCatalyst to take an issue, a CodeCatalyst issue, from idea all the way to pull request, where Q, the AI, is going to do the work of reading your repository, summarizing it, coming up with an approach to the problem, writing the code, creating a pull request, signing it back to you, and then if there's any workflows that run on that pull request, Q is also going to monitor those to see if there's any problems and try to address them as well.
Now the question
super
is,
cool.
if it's writing the code, is it going to write the test for the code too?
It does.
Wow.
It actually writes the unit tests as well. And if you already have unit tests, it will update them for you as well.
Whoa.
So I'll show you some examples of that today. Yeah. And there's the other cool thing about this, and I'll jump into the demos, but you're able to iterate on approaches as well. So if you don't know exactly what you want, if I was working with you on a particular problem, we might collaborate and talk about, hey, I could do it this way, or I could do it this way, or I could do it this way. You can do the same thing with Q. So you can have Q stop after the approach stage. So it's read your code, it knows what you're doing. It's come up with its first option and says, I think we should do this. You can say, no, I want to do this, or do this instead. And then it will regenerate the approach, give you another one and say, how's this? And you can iterate with it on an idea, right? Hey, I want to do this. Let's iterate on the approach. Then you can fire it off to go generate the code.
I'm already having so many fascinating ideas about how my life as a developer is going to be transitioning more toward a product manager almost. And I'm like communicating back and forth with this Q agent that is writing code, to my specifications.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that, just in full disclosure, there are certain use cases where it works well and certain use cases where it doesn't work well, right? So I don't think the developers are threatened at all. So developers, you're still needed. We still need you.
Now, Nathan, you said unit test. What is that? I'm just kidding.
See, this is where Q's going to be better than you as a developer.
Yeah, only joking, kind of joking. Anyway, all right. So, Doug, you want to take a look?
Yeah, let's take a look at some demos here. Yeah, of course. So I'm inside of a CodeCatalyst project here. This one happens to be a modern 3-tier web application. What the modern 3-tier web application does is it creates our mythical misfits. In fact, I can just show you. Remember, when I started this application, I started it from a blueprint. This is the modern 3-tier web application. I can go in and I can look at the application deployment pipeline that came with the blueprint itself. And if I click on the one of the runs that I had here, I'll be able to jump down. I can see that this is building and deploying a backend and some tests. And then their output here is the actual application itself. So if you've ever done this, the Mythical Misfits is somewhat complex if you're doing it on your own. You can get this running in your account in literally probably 5 minutes. And then you can start making changes to it, right? So this application, let me show you how Q would work. So this is what we've deployed, sorry. It's got all these misfits on it. It's got a front end, an API layer, and then it's got a DynamoDB backend. And if we wanted to work with Q on changing something about this application, the way we do that is we go into the issues management board. Again, this is your typical Kanban style board here. And any changes you guys want to make? So I'll say the first thing, let me show one I've already done, and then if you guys want to try something, we can try it.
Yeah,
sure.
So the way, the things that we've noticed and what developers have told us is Q really helps them understand things that they already have, right? So if I was just starting on this project and I hadn't looked at the source code, I'd be trying to figure out, do I have the right, is it commented well? What's the architecture? What are the CDK stacks doing? And I can start digging through the source code to figure that out.
Comments. Now, you two are just like teaching
Isn't it crazy?
me all kinds of new
Yeah.
things. Comment? What is that?
So we can run this one again. So I had one issue that I ran earlier to summarize CDK stacks. And if we wanted to be specific, we could add some more detail down here, right? So let's go ahead and just create it on the CDK stacks. So the way we would do this, we say summarize CDK stacks. And all we do is we assign to Q. You could give it more details if you wanted to. So like in the other example, I was telling it specifically to do something. Create a new README file. So we can say that. Create a new README in the CDK.
You weren't kidding about being a PM. This is
Yeah.
assigned to Q.
Yeah, and
That's
I could
amazing.
tell it to do other things, right? And we've also learned this about working with Q is that if you already know what you want done, just like working with someone else, just tell them what you want, right?
Okay.
So do the same thing here.
Okay, so I get an idea. I want it to change the application so that it has dark mode.
we actually have that. We actually did try that. Believe it or not, there's a bug inside this particular application. It's supposed to be pulling your thing. We can make that work. What we learned is you have to tell Q a little bit differently to tell it to take out the custom coloring.
Okay.
Because it is trying to pull it, but then it manually overrides
Right.
and says make it
What
white.
if we made it a little bit more simple and made it change the background color of the application to black?
We can try that.
Would that work?
Yeah, let's try it. So let me show you what this is going to do now. So now I'll click on Q. I'm sorry, on the issue. Oops. And what it's going to do is the way Q collaborates with you is it's going to comment on this issue so that all the history of this issue is kept. So we can scroll down a little bit, and here's the flow it's going to go through. I kind of talked to this already. And the first thing it's doing is it's waiting for us to respond. Do we want to go into an interactive mode, which will make it stop at certain points to allow us to change the direction? So we can say yes or no. I'll say no. Let's just YOLO it and go right to the code.
Straight to prod.
Exactly. And then do I have permission to change workflow files? This is a README file, so we don't need to do that. We confirm the source repository, and then we hit confirm. And Q will start working on this issue. Going through this process here to read the repository, generate a background and approach code, and then ultimately tag in a pull request. Let's create yours too. These usually take between 3 and 6 minutes to complete all the way if you don't stop it. So we'll fire off a couple
So
now.
I think the wording needs to be something like change the background color to black and the text and foreground elements to white, or something like that.
It's likely smart enough to do that, to change it to white.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens.
You know, if I was given that issue, I may not have been smart enough to change the text to white.
So same thing we'll do here.
It said just change the background. That's all I did.
Exactly. And then now suddenly you can't see anything on the page.
So we're going to get the same process again here, so I can pull this one up. And then I'll jump and show you a finished issue. Excuse me, before we jump into blueprints. Since we're just going to... sorry. Interactive mode will make it stop, so let's not make it stop and see what it does. So that looks good. And let me jump into a finished issue. And you'll notice that these issues are going to move as Q does work. So Q's going to move it in the Kanban board to in progress, and then also move it to in review when it's waiting.
Wow.
When it's waiting for you, right? These stages here are waiting for me.
And so I assume we're doing like a PR environment. So each of these in review has its own deployed environment.
It has, there is an on pull request workflow that runs. This one happens to just be running a Code Guru code review scan, so it's not actually deploying the application. You could do that if you wanted to. This one would take a merge back to main to make it deploy.
Nice.
Or you'd need to make that workflow run on the branch, which you could do as well. So this is what it looks like when it's done, right? So that README file we showed, the pull request gets linked back. All I have to do is click the pull request. Takes me right to it, and you'll see here we've got a summary of CDK stacks. I've got the on pull request workflow that ran. It got assigned to me because I was the one as the approver because I created the issue. If I go to the changes tab, you'll see that you've got a, sorry, my screen is ultra small in this format, but you've got a summary of CDK stacks. There's a serverless app stack. Here's what that does. There's a web stack. Here's what that does, right? And I could approve this, and it created that new README file, as we said.
That's great. Like the number of times when I onboarded to a new company and they didn't have any documentation, and so my first couple of weeks were just reading through and understanding and like writing up some basic documentation for me and whoever, poor developer came after me, right?
Yeah, no, totally.
Sometimes that poor developer is yourself.
Exactly.
Why did I do this?
And now this all went through in like 5 minutes, and I just got a basic structure that explained the repo for me. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's another cool example of Q. So Q helps you with what you already have, but it also helps you with maybe technologies you're not quite familiar with. In this case, I ran a couple examples of adding a linter to the on-pull request workflow. You want to add all the automation you can up front. I added a linter. Turns out I had some linting errors. I don't know actually anything about Vue, which is what this was built with. So I decided, hey, let's just take one of the errors that it said. It was on a vbind key directive. I'm going to copy and paste into an issue and Q have at it. And it fixed it. Like, I didn't need any background. And the other thing that's cool about it, and that we get really excited about, to your point, it also helps you learn. It's like a new way to Google, right? I could go Google and figure out what was happening. But this is going to develop and build an approach for me that I can go read in a background that tells me what it's doing and why it's doing it, so I don't have to actually do that search myself. So we'll check back in on these. Actually, one of them's done already.
Oh, wow.
So this summarized CDK stacks that we said, we can jump right to a pull request. Let's see what it says. I didn't give it very specific examples, but let's see. Yeah, we got a new README file that's very similar to the one we had previously. A little bit different. A little bit less detail, I would say, because we didn't ask for a detailed explanation. But yeah, so this is the Amazon Q feature inside of CodeCatalyst, running feature development.
1 second here, Doug. We've got a lot of people joining us, so I just want to give them a quick recap what we're doing, what we're here talking about, and who we are. If you're just joining us, I'm Am Grabelny. I'm one of your hosts here for our live coverage at reInvent 2023. Nathan and Doug down there. We're talking about CodeCatalyst, and we're not just talking about the new things that have launched. We've talked a lot about CodeCatalyst and all the exciting features it has, but Doug here has been showing us how you basically turn CodeCatalyst with the integration with Amazon Q into your front-end developer if you want. Well, if you're not, you're a back-end developer, whatever developer you want,
almost
right?
like a co-pilot, right, to run with you on working on these things.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Like, I'm really seeing this come together as like a full end-to-end suite for everything related to my code development lifecycle, and that's a beautiful thing. All in one place, one tool. Yep.
We have two other features here that will write pull request descriptions for you in Q, and then also summarize pull request comments. Some easy use features. I won't show those. Let me jump over and show the blueprints as well.
Yeah.
So this is building your own blueprints, right? So inside of my space, which is in the tech here.
We had a lot of questions from chat about blueprints and how they're different from CloudFormation. Are they different from CloudFormation? Yeah. What can you include in a blueprint? So
yeah,
CloudFormations,
think of them as like a living document, right? Blueprints are under the hood TypeScript code. So as you change things, the code generates and changes the way it's going to actually work on your application.
So TypeScript, I'm assuming you're referring to like AWS Cloud Development Kit.
It's like it's ProGen.
Oh, ProGen. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Awesome.
So here in this particular project, in this particular space, we have deployed 2 custom blueprints.
Sorry, Doug. We do have a really quick question from chat. Can Q operate on multiple files in the same repo?
Yeah.
I assume so, but it only changed the README in your example, so they wanted to make sure.
Yeah, great question. I have another example, and I'd love for you to go try it.
Yes.
There's another example that I did with Q where I asked it to sort the misfits by age, and it sorts them by age. It also updates 2 files for the unit test. It was smart enough when I wasn't to tell me that when it was generating the unit test, it needed to randomize the misfits in the grid to make sure that they weren't already sorted by age, on the off chance that they would be. Whoa. And so we've got an example of doing that as well. And it changes, I think, 3 files after I got it. We iterated on an example there, an approach there.
Very cool. Well, we only got a minute left. Doug. Let's see the custom blueprints.
Yeah. So the way the blueprints works, these are 2 blueprints that have been created in this particular space itself. So I can click on these. One's a workflow blueprint, and one is a full blueprint. And I can see a history of all of the projects that have been created off of this blueprint and which version they're currently on, right? We see this has been revved once, and so these would have gotten pull requests with those particular changes to get them up to date. If I wanted to use this, I go into Initech and create project. We've got our blueprints, and then we've also got your custom blueprints here. So if I wanted to create this base Lambda stack, go ahead and hit next. And this would have all been generated by their team. I give it a project name. And then we had this one, I have some generic examples down here. And just to show you that these are, like I said, dynamically generated, if I looked at the code that got generated by this, and we're going to run out of time, so if I were to change some of these attributes, you would see it change in the project that gets generated as well.
Wow.
And then, again, the most powerful thing here is really the lifecycle management, allowing you to, as your best practices change that you have codified in blueprints, you can keep track of all the projects that have been created off those blueprints and then issue pull requests back to those as your best practices change. So
I could talk about CodeCatalyst all day, Doug.
yeah.
But unfortunately, we can't. We're out of time.
Oh, it's too bad.
But the only way to go learn more is to go try it.
Yeah,
So,
time to stop talking, start doing.
that's right.
Yeah.
Go out and check out all the cool new features in CodeCatalyst. And stay tuned, because we'll be right back with more from AWS On Air.